Oh. Good afternoon, meat suits. Welcome back to Read It and Weep, a podcast about movies and friendship. This is a bonus episode in season 5. Today we're just two guys getting ready to do a horse commercial. And this is going to be a special. This is maybe a new series. I like to name something the first time, and then it either becomes a series or we never talk about it again. Either way, this is the first of possibly one episodes that I'm calling Still Processing. So this is where we're talking about a movie that we just watched in the last couple days. Just yesterday for me.
Same here.
24 hours. Still processing it. So this is not the you're used to, if you listen to the show for a while, you're used to us having really incisive commentary, really well thought through, researched, we support everything that we say. In this, it's going to be a little more, we're going to feel our way through it. I didn't clear this with Anthony before I started explaining it. So Anthony, I'm still processing. If you have a lot of research you're ready to present, all the better. You can help me process. I'm your host, as always. I'm Alex Falcone, recording in North Koreatown, Los Angeles, and I'm joined by, he's at Anthony Lopez Part 2 on Twitter. He's in Southeast Portland. He has been cast in abominable filth. He's been made vile. He has been made set as a spectacle. It's Anthony Lopez.
And if you are watching this on YouTube, do me a favor. Try not to look Alex in the eyes while we were recording this episode.
Clear. I'm a strong
could be real bad. Yeah, I mean, an internet predator, the worst type of predator.
No.
But no, this is cool. I like this. If this is a one-off, then this is, a one-of-one collection, right? This is going to be valuable someday, right?
It's basically an NFT. You can buy this episode for a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, it may be a thing we could do again when we watch a movie as like a little bonus thing. It might have to have more format than just a name I came up with as I started recording for it to really catch on. But, let us know if you want to hear us still processing more stuff. It helps with this where there's I would even go so far as to suggest that large portions of this movie are unprocessable. They are, you're not meant to know. So if you're still processing it a year later, that would be very reasonable. Interesting noise. This episode, as all of our episodes are, is brought to you by our fabulous meat buddies, whose donation to the show morally obligates us to keep doing it long after the fun is gone. If you'd like to join them and help keep the show limping down the tracks, you can go to Metreon.com. I really appreciate everybody who supports the show. Also, as Anthony mentioned, this is available everywhere fine podcasts are available. It's also available on YouTube if you like to see our faces while we are talking. Speaking of which, we're going to do a thing next week. So first, let me start out with like a little bit of news segment, a little as frequently is personal news. But our next episode is going to be about the Avengers. Boo, you're right, it's terrible. But we're going to watch Avengers End Game, and we're going to do a watch along on Twitch. So if you want to watch us watching this movie, and you can click the link, and like if you have Disney Plus and you want to like watch at the same time as we're making commentary, you can do that, or you can just hang out with me being sad. We're gonna do that this coming Tuesday.
And you have been spending the week catching up, right? Watching all 24 movies or whatever.
August the 2nd. August the 2nd at 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll come back to this. It's a great joke, Anthony. August 2nd at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Let's see, what's this? 1 a.m. in the Netherlands. All of that, you can just hang out with us on Twitch. We'll have it posted on our things, but I believe we're going to use Hunter's Twitch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I believe is twitch.tv/SpaceCatsPeaceTurtles. Join us next week, Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific. Yeah, twitch.tv/SpaceCatsPeaceTurtles. Okay, so Anthony, you were please continue your hilarious bit.
Oh, I was just thinking, isn't it wild that the MCU did in 10 years what it took the James Bond franchise 40, 50 years to do? Make 25 movies. Oh, no, it's make 25 movies.
Oh, make 25 movies.
And then they just announced another, 50 last week, which was
okay.
exciting.
So I want to take both the two parts of that point separately. First, you sent me a great great text the other day that was like, "Hey, just to get you ready for this episode, make sure you watch
just a few
just a few
movies.
things. A few things you should do." I posted this on Twitter, and it was very popular among our listeners. But as a gesture of goodwill, here's a few movies you should watch first, and then you listed all of them.
And everything till Endgame. There's been multiple things since Endgame, so the list is just growing. When we do Avengers 4, the Kang Dynasty review in 2027, I will have to update the list with another 20 movies and 10 TV shows. So
Jeff R on Twitter says that since it came out after Endgame, you can probably skip Black Widow, but you really do need to watch at least the first 2 seasons of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
So just adding a little bit more work to the
and look,
pile.
I've watched. I like the Marvel movies. I don't think any of them are great. Like what I have sort of say about the Marvel movies, I think like the worst Marvel movie is like a C minus, and like the best one is like a B plus. They are really solid, middling students.
What are those two extremes? What's the C minus? What's a B plus?
Like Thor 2 would be at the end of the bottom end. I think that's the one that people always make fun of.
Before Taika took over and saved it.
Before they completely changed who Thor was as a character when it was a completely different movie. But I mean, thankfully, Avengers End Game, Thor 2 is like the most important movie because we literally spend like 20 minutes in Thor 2 in Avengers End Game because of the time travel shenanigans. And then the best ones, like Black Panther is obviously really good. I personally I think like I like the first of the Avenger the two between like Infinity War and Endgame. I like those two quite a bit. I really like Infinity War just because it's such an audacious movie. But the Guardians movies I like quite a bit. The first Iron Man is really, really good. Yeah, but
I liked the Guardians of the Galaxy first movie. I thought the second one was a little bit boring, but I liked the first one a lot. And I watched Ant-Man because I like tiny things. That was fine.
Yeah, Ant-Man's definitely in that B category. Just solid. Yeah. It's all right. It gets the job done.
Very charming individual.
Yeah,
hard to be sad when Paul Rudd is hanging there. I also watched. I've seen 2 of the Avengers movies. I think I just watched the Avengers and the one that we're gonna watch. I don't think I saw Infinity War, but I could have. I can't remember. I may have seen the other one too.
Yeah, I mean, I do, and I imagine we'll talk about this. Like,
I've seen a few. I didn't do all of the homework here. I didn't see 25 movies for you, but I've watched 4 of them, 5 of them.
Yeah, I mean, I am still I do think I look at the MCU. Especially like Iron Man 2 Endgame, if you just take that stretch, which is kind of a complete arc, right? From
phase 1, yeah.
Yeah. But I look at that almost like I look at like a really impressive building. Like, man, that's just like they actually made that. That's wild. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's like looking at like the Burj Khalifa or something. It's like, that's probably unnecessary. It didn't need to be that big.
Definitely unnecessary, yeah.
The top 100 floors are purely for decorations, and you can't actually go up there because the oxygen shit.
Right. Probably a lot of people died building it.
Yeah,
just like the universe, the MCU.
Yeah, but I do think just from like as a film nerd and someone who's like really into like the history and very big elaborate productions, like if you do kind of step back and look at it as just like the amount of like planning and scheduling and getting all these kind of like very famous actors, like this is one shot at the end of Endgame. Spoilers for Endgame. There's gonna be a lot of spoilers this episode for a lot of movies, I imagine.
At the very end of the game, you're saying?
Yeah, at the very end of the game. There's that one famous shot at Tony Stark's funeral where like everyone is there. Everyone who's in the MCU who's still alive is at this funeral, and it's this one long shot, and it's literally like the fact that they were able to schedule that and get everyone there for this. All of these like legends from like really young up and coming stars to like literally Oscar winning legends of Hollywood. All in one.
And the way they were able
shot.
to do it is that those people are not allowed to breathe without Disney's permission for the rest of their lives.
Oh yeah, it's just Bob Chapek standing on the back of their necks, being like, "You're gonna do this, and I'm not gonna pay you what you deserve."
So the other thing you mentioned, I said I was going to take it in two parts, and the first one was how many to watch, and then what was the second part? What was I going to say about that? Do you remember what it was? The moment is gone. Let's move on. So again, you can watch us watch a movie August 2nd at 4 p.m. Pacific.
This kind of great insight is what you're gonna get during all of Endgame. I mean, okay, so you have. I mean, we could talk about this, but like, you have seen Endgame, but you understand like Thanos wins at the end of the first one. A bunch of people disappear, and it's very, very convenient. Well, I mean, it is kind of poetic. Like the only people who like are left are like the original crew, essentially. But you get that 5 years happen between the
I don't remember
movies
this, and I don't care. But you did mention that we'll talk about this more next week on the stream. Probably you mentioned that they have like 74 movies they just announced as well. And what I love about this announcement was it was just like, hey, remember how you didn't know most of the Avengers? Have we got some names you've never heard for you? Like they just keep coming up with names of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the like, I've mentioned this before, but like the fact that like, because of Marvel almost going bankrupt in the 90s, they had to sell the rights to all the A-listers. So they built the MCU off of C-list stringers, right? Like,
and
makes it more
turns
impressive.
Out, that's what's amazing is that they still have a deep enough bench that they're coming up with more.
Yeah, and the fact that they've been emboldened. Like, I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but like the fact that like my mom not only knows who Rocket Raccoon is, but loves Rocket Raccoon is like the most impressive magic trick any studio has ever pulled.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they were able to take such an obscure team and
I
make
also kind of like Rocket Raccoon, I gotta say.
Yeah. He's a lovable little scant, I love him. He's a troublemaker.
Man, that's good to know. If I ever hang out with your mom, I have something to talk about.
Yeah, and you're both deeply devout and religious people, so
well, I was going to avoid that, and I'll talk about Rocket Raccoon. Okay, so that's one bit of news. Bit of news number two: the new episode of We Live in the Future is on the YouTube channel now. If you go to youtube.com/AlexFalcone, you can watch me talk about futurism. This week I watched Time Runner from 1993. I told you a little bit about this because I just watched it when I hung out with you last time. But this is starring Mark Hamill, who I have seen in something and I can't remember what it was.
What We Do in the Shadows.
He was What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah,
so you know him from. Yeah, that's what he's mostly famous for.
That's the joke that I did in the video. He's so good at What We Do in the Shadows. Such a great character. And if they don't tell you, you probably would not notice right away. At least you would maybe eventually, but he's buried under vampire makeup. So really fun use of Mark Hamill there.
He finally gets to actually use his real voice, which I thought was really nice. He's been doing these fake voices since the 70s, and I'm glad they finally let him, use his natural accent.
The other thing, so I talked a little bit about this in the video, but it's a terrible movie, Time Runner. And as far as like futurism, it's like they could not afford to do the future.
Oh, yeah, future's expensive, baby.
Super expensive. But it turns out 1993 is very cheap. So what you do is you have a movie that's in the future for 5 minutes, and then Mark Hamill goes back in time to the current day that you were filming, and then you can just film in 1993. But the best part of it, there's one character in that movie that is so much fun, and I would enjoy having in every movie. And did I tell you this when we were talking? There's this guy named Arnie, and they so at one point.
Oh yes, you did tell me about.
Two characters steal an airplane and a crop duster, and they don't realize Arnie is like sleeping one off in the back of the plane. It's his plane, and he's hungover, and he wakes up and hears a time traveler and an alien discussing their plans, and then he's just like, "What can I do? How can I help?" He's just like so ready to, and he's even says he's like, I'm adventurous. That's his whole reasoning. And then he just never questions. 10 minutes later, he is firing an automatic weapon at the military in a military base he's broken into. Like, he is just instantly on board for whatever people are doing. Anyway, get yourself an Arnie in your life. He's a good guy to have around. He knows where there's an old truck you can borrow, and he is ready to do anything that you ask.
Yeah.
So that's DTF. We live in the future. Yeah, he's down to clown for sure.
Yeah.
So check that out. People have been very nice about it so far, and I'm curious what you guys think as people have listened to me talking about movies for a long time. I made a little thumbnail for YouTube. It's got the movie poster and me being like, what? So like this is the most YouTube-y I've ever been in my life, Anthony. I feel like a real YouTube guy right now.
Trying to get a plaque. You know, you gotta have a you gotta,
someday.
trying to get a plastic tag above your head.
I am basically a million subscribers short of that. So
Yeah.
if I can
And
just
they
get a
give you one
million.
at 100,000 too, so that really saying
Is it
something.
a 100,000
That's
one?
that's
Okay,
so
well then
far behind you.
I'm
You're
about 99,000 away from that, so I've still got a long ways to go. But yeah, I mean, it's so funny. I remember 10 years ago when I was like just starting comedy, I
Mm,
was like, I really got to start making YouTube videos. That's where all the success is. I
yeah.
really got to get into YouTube. Uh, 10 years later, 10 years too late. Now that everybody has moved on, I'm finally ready to
Mm.
swoop in and take over.
Yeah, there's a great YouTube content creator named Super Eye Patch Wolf who does these really long form videos that are really fascinating, and he just made one about about like people who sell here's how to get 1 million subscriber
Oh yeah, yeah.
lesson plans and
Oh
everything
nice,
like
yeah.
that, you know. And the irony is that none of these people have anywhere close to a
No,
million subscribers on their YouTube.
no.
But yeah, he kind of goes a lot into sort of what it's like and the mental toll and exhaustion of working on YouTube, and the way that YouTube has all these programs that are like these sort of back end things that are like very discouraging and psychologically damaging to be able to watch numbers. And they give you all this very specific detail. So I can't wait for you to go on this journey after watching
I
that.
mean, I'm already doing that on so
Um,
many other platforms. I feel like
yeah.
I'm more ready for on YouTube than I was in TikTok timeout this week
Mm.
where they were not showing my videos to anybody, and
No.
so this was like a good place to pour some effort. It is all very damaging. I'm not like a kid who was like 14 and was like I need to be an influencer. I'm like
Yeah.
when I was starting in
You
comedy,
don't
there were
even have a
clubs.
gamers chairs, you know?
I
I
don't
don't know
know.
what
I
you
know my
think you
chair is
can.
not nearly big enough for this. But they like I'm not trying to be an influencer because I think that's an important job for the world or one thing that I really
Mhm.
want to do. I'm trying to get people to come see my stand-up shows. I've already got
Yeah.
an out. I've got an off ramp from this road, so I think it'll keep me healthier. Um, Also, I'm making shorter content than he is. Um, but and one more content thing, I guess, really quick, which is also that for those of you who've been following along with the Teeny Tiny Grant, I have my third round of Teeny Tiny Grants
Mhm.
um, out this week, so you can see all some more of the people who have gotten grants. And this one's really cute. It's got kids and it's got dogs. It's got the whole thing. It's great. It's good for everybody. All right, really quick. Last thing I want to do in the news segment before we talk about this movie, Anthony. I would
Yeah.
like this is another thing I didn't tell you about beforehand.
Okay.
This is a segment we do occasionally, and it's called that I'm now calling Anthony's Outlook. So,
Ooh.
Anthony, what else are we just watched a new movie. We just watched my first movie in theaters I've watched in a long time. What else is
Mm.
coming out for the rest of the summer, like or early in the fall? What else is on your list of movies you're excited to see in theaters?
Um, should have given me a heads up.
I know
I
I
could
should
have.
have. I definitely,
I
but I just
was.
assumed you always are excited about something.
Yeah. I mean, so far, I. Okay, so like, I was just talking to my wife about this, about how this year has already been a pretty banger year for movies. I
Which
think,
is fascinating because it's like 30% as many movies as a normal year have come
yeah.
out. So are they doing just the good ones?
Well, there's definitely been a lot of bad movies, and a lot of movies still coming out, and a lot of movies that I haven't had any desire to see. But the movies I have seen, and like some of them have been, pushed from the last 2 years and are finally getting released this year. But this year already, between Everything Everywhere All at Once,
Right.
um, uh, Top Gun Maverick, which I was a very big fan of, seeing as a theatrical experience. Nope. The Batman obviously was still, recovering from morbing out so hard as a collective society. I mean,
Right.
we
So
can't
so one of the
forget
things you're looking forward
Morbius
to later
came
in the
out.
year is when Morbius comes out again.
Oh yeah, I mean, God, people need to we got to first get over the first morbing, and then we can morb again. Um,
um yeah, they've still put out some crap, but like so what else is on the horizon from here?
let me see here. Well, but I'm trying to find just a list of upcoming movies that look
Yeah.
good this year. Um,
I
God,
know
Death
there's
in
a
the Nile came out.
yeah, that was
Uh,
terrible.
Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent's out. I really want to see that. I really want to
Right.
see
So
that Scream movie. There's a lot of stuff that's already come out that I want to keep seeing.
Yeah. Are you going to see Marcel the Shell with Shoes on?
I do really want to see that. Yes.
I'm interested in that. That seems fun. Also, there's BJ Novak's got a new movie coming out next week
Mm-hmm.
called Vengeance that he wrote and directed, which I don't know anything about. Isn't there? There's also like a new The Rock superhero movie.
Oh, Black Adam.
Yeah,
I don't know if you know this, but the hierarchy of power in the MCU is going to change forever. That's something
that's an MCU. I thought that was a
No,
DC
that's
movie.
the DCU. I'm sorry, did I say MCU? I
Yes.
meant
Yeah. Yeah.
DCU.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, that's like the line he keeps saying over and over and over again, and it's very
Well, I
obnoxious.
mean, it seems like by like the most famous person they're putting into this.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the MCU, I don't know if you watched the trailer for Wakanda Forever,
No,
the new Black Panther movie. It is a very, very well cut trailer. I'm a
I
big
don't.
fan of
I do
Ryan
not see Marvel
Coogler's.
movies unless I'm forced to. So I probably not
Um,
going to end up seeing this.
this one looks pretty good. But yeah, I mean, so far
Are,
just between that, there's
do you know? Have
there's
you heard
a
anything about 3,000 Years of Longing?
yeah, the new George Miller movie that looks
Yeah,
pretty
I
good.
haven't
Looks
seen one
really
of his in a
wild.
minute.
Yeah. There's a Indian movie on Netflix called like 3 hours
Huh?
all next to each other. I've been meaning to get around to seeing. Everyone I know who has seen it has said it's one of the best movies they have seen in years. Um,
Hmm.
it's a real just from the bit I've seen of it, it looks wild. It's very, very over the top and hyper stylized. It's a Bollywood action movie. I mean, that's kind of how they make films over there. But this
Yeah.
one's supposed to be really, really good. Um, I
There's also a
definitely want to
new
see that.
Guillermo del Toro's doing a new Pinocchio.
Yeah, I think he's just a producer on it. I don't know if he's actually making it because there's also the Robert Zemeckis Pinocchio,
Oh
which
wait,
is
really?
coming out end of this year or next year.
Okay, so this
Um,
is people are like I saw the stories because the trailer just came out today, but people are calling it Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, and it's a stop
oh,
motion Pinocchio
oh,
on
maybe it
Netflix.
is him. I don't. I know it might just be like I said. I'm not actually sure what his remote job is on it.
Yeah,
Um,
interesting.
but yeah,
Interesting. All
a
right.
lot of Pinocchio. I mean, there was that Italian Pinocchio like a year or two
Right.
ago. A lot of
Yeah.
Pinocchio on the brain right now.
When when the IP is free, people
Mm-hmm.
pee freely. All right. Anyway, that was
Yeah.
not great, but it came out. All right. So that's the news. We got a movie to process. We're still processing in segment 2. It's time for segment 2. Still processing. Yesterday we watched Nope, the 2022 American science fiction horror film written, directed, and co-produced by Jordan Peele. It's from his Monkey Paw Productions banner. It
Mm-hmm.
stars Daniel Kaluuya, Kiki Palmer, Steve Yeun, Brandon Perea, and Michael Wincock.
Daniel
And
Kaluuya also finally getting to do his natural accent. I'm convinced his British accent is actually a voice he puts on.
oh, I
He
thought
does
you were saying
such
his
a
natural
good.
accent was just not talking for most of the
No,
time.
he's another one. He's one of those actors. I've talked about this before, but like
You think he's
I don't
pretending to be
believe
British for the
he's
money?
British. He's just so good at
Yeah,
doing an American accent,
yeah.
and every time you hear his real
Suspicious.
voice, it's just very upsetting to me. But yeah, we talked about this like a year or two ago when all those like real life American movies came out
Right. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all the Americans were played by Brits.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. They've
but
taken
yeah,
over. They've won. This is how they get us back.
they play
We got independence, and they were like, "Just you wait. In a few hundred
yeah.
years, we're gonna send over some TV actors that you cannot handle."
Yeah, you guys can take independence, but we're gonna take credit for it in the movies. We're
Yes.
gonna
Right.
play those people.
I didn't quite get to the end of that list of people it's
Oh, sorry.
starring. Michael Wincock, Cott, and a bunch of horses. Just wanted to get to that.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to say there were a lot of horses in the movie.
Yeah.
So because this is a brand new movie, this is going to be spoilery in a way. I'm not going to do a full summary and like spoil every beat for you, but we're going to have to talk about it. We're going to talk about the ending. So
Yeah,
if
and
you've not seen Nope
also
yet and don't want it to be spoiled for you, I mean, I went into this blind, which is something I wanted to talk to you about actually.
mhm.
Um, is like how blind I could go into a movie. Like I did not watch a single trailer. I've seen the poster, the billboards around town, but I didn't watch a
Yeah.
single trailer. I knew nothing about the plot of this movie. So the first spoiler is coming here in a second, which is that this is a movie about aliens. So if you didn't want that
Well,
spoiled for you,
not
uh,
not really. And like the thing is, my problem is you're pluralizing it. It's
right,
not about
right.
aliens. It's
Well,
about
I don't know.
alien.
We don't know. Well,
You know?
it seems like mostly one alien, but
Yeah. Well, I
but
mean,
it's a movie about alien.
So we're gonna fully spoil this movie. I also gonna put a warning out because I imagine Jordan Peele's other films are gonna come up. So also spoilers for Get Out and Us. We're probably gonna get dropped in this movie. I do want to ask
And
you a
probably a
question.
few other. We should just pick a few other movies from a long time ago to spoil as well.
Well,
Like
specifically, I'm
Soylent
going
Green is
to.
also people.
Well, I'm gonna say, did you see the Jaws trailer before this movie? Because when I saw it, they're re-releasing Jaws in IMAX later this year.
Oh no, I
So
did
they
not. I
played
watched this at a really cool little independent theater that had I think one trailer, and that was it.
Okay, so I saw this in IMAX, which was a
Yeah,
delight because it was mostly shot in IMAX.
yeah, and
But
also branded on the hand crank camera said it
yes,
was an IMAX camera.
so later this year or early next year, they're going to be re-releasing Jaws in IMAX, and it was very, very funny
As it was originally intended.
to see a Jaws trailer before this because about halfway through this movie, I realized
This is
this is
Jaws.
Jaws.
Right. So
Like,
okay,
and
so
it's
major spoilers for Jaws ahead.
I mean, not just down to like this movie's filled with homages, but literally the entire final act is a almost beat for beat recreation of the Jaws final act, which is very, very purposeful. Like
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
every single event that happens in Jaws happens in this movie, right?
Yeah.
Almost identically. And I
Yeah,
thought
this
that
is
was
clearly a thing that
really,
Jordan
really
Peele
cool.
likes. Like Us starts with like panning over a series of VHS tapes of movies that he's doing homages to later. Like
Yeah.
the dude is very
Well,
very happy
and
to show us
there's
things he likes.
everyone in the theater thought I was crazy, but did you recognize the Akira reference? It's like
No.
the most famous shot in Akira is the motorcycle slide, and she does the Akira
Uh,
motorcycle slide, and hollowed when that happened. I couldn't control it. The second because it's the exact same camera angle, it's the
uh-huh.
exact same shot, but she does the Akira slide, and I was like, yes! I just screamed that out loud. And
Yeah,
everyone
I
thought I
don't
was
like to
crazy.
verbalize in a movie, but when she did get on the motorcycle, I was like, because they told us repeatedly she also does motorcycles.
Yeah.
So when she got on a motorcycle, I was like, that's why they did that.
Yeah.
Um, I
I mean,
also
that's
suspect my crowd cheered more for fries than your crowd did.
oh yeah.
Um,
Well,
are you familiar with fries?
oh yeah. I mean, there's a fries in Oregon.
No, but that fries.
No, not that specific fries.
Okay.
There's one fries in the entire state of
Yes.
Oregon, and it's down in Wilsonville. And
Okay,
I've been there a handful of times. Yes.
Yeah, it's an electronics store. It's a neat electronics store. But one of the things about fries is that each of them, or like some of them, have like themes. They have like decor.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a fries up here. It's in the valley, and it closed during COVID, I think, or right after COVID. But it has a huge flying saucer abduction prop thing built into the front of the fries, and which is obviously thematic to this movie because it's about an alien sucking things up through a straw. So they go into a fries that is thematically related to the movie, but it's our local fries that everybody loved, and I was very sad I didn't go to before it closed because it's like an institution here. So people here were like very excited to see that fries.
Yeah, I thought that was very funny.
So,
I have seen pictures of that fries before.
Yes, yeah. So that was a great little bit. In fact, that was the first of what I am going to call a new thing that I'm going to call the Alexis, which is I'm going to give some awards, my favorite little things, not big things, my favorite little things in the movie. And there's a million little things in here that are great, but a couple little things. One is the fries. I loved that. Another Alexi for the scissors on the desk. The scissors from Us are like the big, which is like one of my favorite. I did not care for Us, too scary. But I did like the big brass scissors that they use as their horror movie prop, and having that sitting on the desk. I love when somebody is like, "This is my cinematic universe." The Jordan Peele cinematic universe is like these scissors exist in multiple places. I also really like, how you tell me whenever you see a helicopter, there's two helicopters.
Oh yeah, anytime.
One of my favorite things in movies is when there's a large movie set, because I know that if you were to pull back, there's a larger movie set around it with like the same set of chairs and lights and sandbags and tea stands or whatever. Like right behind that are the same things, but the real versions.
Yeah, it's
and
a setception.
It's setception. There was a huge commercial set for this horse commercial, and I loved being like, "There's another set behind that set." And so that was a nice. When I did one of the episodes of Portlandia I was in, we were on a fake set with a set behind it. So I've been on the set on a set before, and it's really trippy. And to have like when we were doing it because it's a comedy, the person pretending to be the director was acting as the director was the costume person in real life. So to have him be like helping with costumes, then he like walks around, someone does makeup, and then he pretends to be the director is a very good time. It was a good little bit for us.
I know the competition is stiff this year in the Alexies, but I definitely think for best shoe standing up on end for no good reason, but as just a really striking image, this movie is definitely the favorite for that award category.
Incredible.
I think it's really weird that you have that category in there every year because the competition is not usually very stiff, but this movie
definitely one of the best shoes in film of 2022. We can talk about what that means if it means something. I mean, I think you're right, not really meaning anything, but I did Google it just to see what other people thought. I've read some opinions.
I interpret it as, there's like one of the lines from this movie is like, what's the name for a bad type of miracle, right? What's the name for like, and like, how do we enforce meaning? Like, I think the shoe is there. Shoe is there and it's meaningless, but it's about how you force meaning on things, right? How nature and these things can't be controlled, and they're mostly chaos. And wild animals are gonna be fucking wild animals. But when you have something like traumatic happen to you, you force meaning on things, right? Like the fact that like this weird shoe thing happened, that he survived the Gordy incident, that he thinks he's now like special and that he's going to be able to tame this other wild animal, right? It is like,
well, so I'm okay. So I do want to come back to that because I'm mostly on board with that, but that thing that you just said at the end throws me off a little bit. I think the best interpretation of it, like a simpler interpretation, is just like the thing about bad miracles. That was just showing you this ridiculous thing. This was a bad miracle. Just like, hey, reminder, miracle happening because this magic is happening. I think that's simple enough. I think you like your interpretation of that other character, the Gordy character, is not Gordy's the monkey. What's what's his name?
Jupiter.
Jupiter. Yeah, Jupes.
Jupes. Which, by the way, I mean, we talked about him on the Maneri episode, but Stephen Yeun,
yeah,
I don't know how to pronounce his last name, is easily one of my favorite actors working today. Ever since I saw him in like the early seasons of The Walking Dead, I just always knew like this guy is so fucking good.
He's so good, and he's great in his really interesting role.
Yeah, he's only in this movie for a little bit, but he is so fucking I might even call his
he's the B story of this movie.
Yeah,
and I mean, large parts of the B story are like more interesting than actually some of the main stuff. There's it's a really interesting side story. You could definitely see a movie about the Gordy incident and what happens to Jupes. But yeah, he's really, really good. Aesthetically, this is another Alexi. Aesthetically, Jordan Peele's incredible. So that the shoe is phenomenal. But the horse through the truck, the air dancers just out there in the desert is like, so one of the things that's kind of fascinating to me about Jordan Peele's directing career so far is like, coming from the sketch world, I would think of him as being like hyper verbal. He's going to be like explaining stuff really clear, hitting jokes. And his movies are more patient and really visually striking. He has some of the most visually striking things, like the scissors in that red jumpsuit is one of the most visually striking things I've ever seen in a horror movie. This air dancers in the desert is just one of the most incredible looking things I've ever seen. It's so good.
My favorite thing about Key and Peele, and I don't know how many like sketches he directed, but I know like, and I think like why working on Key and Peele was probably such good preparation for making these types of movies is the thing that I think Key and Peele did better than any other sketch show, besides having incredible writing and great performers, was the way their sketches, if it was like a horror movie theme sketched, it didn't look like a sketch of a horror movie. They shot it like a horror movie, right?
Right.
They were such masters of tone and like setting a mood for their sketches, and their sketches didn't look like any other sketches. You look at like most big sketch shows and they look like cheap little sketches, right? And they will like do horror movie stuff and it doesn't look as like convincing, but Key and Peele would always go the extra mile to make sure that their
Interesting.
things looked exactly like the movies or whatever that they were
Yeah.
parodying. So, and I think getting to work with a bunch of different directors and seeing how they would make like a horror movie thing or a thriller or like a music video or like when they would do like an 80s like like jazzercise sketch, which is like one of the favorite sketches. It looks like something like from the film stock, the way they light it, it looked exactly like it was from that period. And I think he probably got to observe and work with a lot of really smart people learning how to master this tone. And it really
Yeah.
shows in his movies. And I think his movies like Get Out is obviously like it's impossible to understate like the importance of that movie just between like its cultural impact, the way it added words to the lexicon,
Yeah.
like just all the
I mean,
terms and everything
well,
from
this
that
is
movie.
so I didn't love Us. I liked Nope, but I wasn't like blown away by it the way I
Mm.
was with uh his
Get Out.
first one with Get Out. I do feel like Get Out was so once in a generation good
Yeah.
that it's a weird place for his other movies where they're like, this is a good movie. There's some really
Yeah.
interesting things going on here. If you hadn't made Get Out, this would be one of the most impressive things I've seen. But because your first thing was so good, everything else he's like done since then with these other two movies are both like, wow, good. Yeah, it's not Get Out though. And that
See,
it does feel like he's almost hamstrung by having nailed the first one so well.
yeah, I mean there is, like Christopher McQuarrie, who's another writer director I really love. I've seen him talk about interviews. Like the first thing he ever wrote was The Usual Suspects, and he
Right.
won Academy Award for that. And he's talked about how that fucked up his career for like a
Yeah.
decade. Right? It took him forever because like you win an Oscar for your first movie, and everyone's like, "So you're going to do that again with your next
Right.
one, right?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. So just
And
write another Oscar right now.
yeah. But I think, I mean, yeah, I mean, one, for a horror movie to win an Oscar is incredibly rare. You have to make a very important horror movie for
Yeah.
that to happen. I The way I feel about Jordan Peele's movies, I think he's 3 for 3. I've talked about, I really obviously love Get Out. I think it's a great movie. I personally think Us is one of the greatest horror movies of all time. I think
Yeah,
it's
I
one
should
of the
say, by the way,
greatest.
I like obviously just in case it wasn't obvious, but it probably was, but just in case. Not my genre.
Yeah,
So
and
I think actually I liked this more than Us by a fair amount
yeah.
because Us was the most horror movie of the three, and so I like it the least. I don't
Well,
like
this
horror
is
movies. This one, that's a horror movie in a way that this feels like is not a horror movie at all to me.
yeah. Well, this is definitely more, like I said, more of a thriller, I think, than a horror movie. This also is um this is his most straightforward movie. Like I think that there is a lot of really good social commentary and like really smart ideas in this movie, but to me, like Us, I think like Get Out is like a great, really smart, socially conscious thriller with a lot to say. I think Us is like almost entirely allegorical, right? I think the movie works as like a literal thing, but I really think it's mostly supposed to be an allegory that you to think about, you know?
All right, so we've dragged people in. We're almost 40 minutes in this episode,
Yeah.
and people are here because last week you teased that we were going to get the grand unified theory of Us that no
Yeah.
one has said on the internet before. This is a completely original
Yeah.
take that is going to change the way everyone thinks about all of Jordan Peele's movies, but especially about Us.
Well,
Finally, for the first time on a podcast, Anthony, please reveal what is Us actually about. Blow me away. Everybody, I will say, in the next hour, you will leave changed.
I don't know if any of what you just said is true, but I have a reading on Us that I've never seen. I mean, there probably are other people who have made this point, but what I love about Us, and like I said, as I think of it as like an allegorical movie, and I think his movies. One of the things I really like about this trilogy is the way the titles have multiple meanings. Right, like Get Out is about like the commodification of black bodies and like black bodies going into these neighborhoods and being told to get out, but it's
Yeah.
also that layer of like it's what stereotypical black audiences scream during horror movies, right? Get Out.
Mm,
It's like
right.
that's why it's called that, right? And Us is a lot of the same way. It's about us, and it's also US, right? It's about what it
Right.
means to be a United States citizen. And I
Yes.
think a lot of people who, when I see them talk about Us, I think it's really funny, and this kind of trap, especially white liberals that Get Out is making fun of, fall into a lot, where his first movie was about race and he's a black director, so this movie's about race,
Right.
right? And I see a lot of people say that about Us, and I think like one of the
People
things
are
that,
also saying it about Nope, which is like it definitely has moments
yeah,
of that,
this
but
movie,
it's
that,
also largely about animals, and it's
yeah,
about
nature
about
and
Hollywood, and
control, yeah,
it's about I mean, it definitely has elements of race, and those are important parts of it. But it is
yeah,
not about race the way Get Out is about race. It's much more about like Hollywood and fame, and
yeah,
about how picture like who is in a picture and who is taking that picture and who do you remember from that picture, which has racial elements, but is also largely not
yes,
about that. And then
and the
also a
way
lot
that,
about how we interact with wild animals.
yeah, and the way like white people take credit for the work of black
Yes.
artists and
Yes.
stuff like this, all that. But like to me, Us is like one of the things he really strives to show in that movie is that from the richest family to literally homeless people, everyone has a tether, right? This is not
Mhm.
a race or a class thing. This is to be an American citizen, to be a US citizen, you have this tether. And what I believe Us is about, the allegory is that it's about the forced disassociative state that to be an American is to
Yeah.
live in constantly, right? Every single thing about our society is kind of, our brains are sort of forced and taught to think of things in two halves, right? So I think that's why the way the movie uses I Got Five on It, this song, as
Mhm.
a recurring motif is because that scene in the car is kind of like the key for the movie, right? It is when they're in the car and the I Got Five on It comes on, and the son's like, what is the song about? And the sister's like, drugs. And the parents are like, no, it's not about drugs. Don't do drugs. Just listen to the rhythm. Just listen to the music, right?
Right.
And it is the parents subconsciously unaware already doing this to their child. They're already telling them to not look at the truth, just enjoy this part of it. And I think that's why there's so much like Michael Jackson imagery in the movie, right? Because like
Mhm, mhm,
only in
mhm, mhm.
America is the idea of separating art from the artist like a real conversation, because we've been trained to disassociate like that, right? We are the only people on the planet who really can be like, oh, I can love this art and just literally not acknowledge the bad part of it, right? I can separate the art from the artist because that's what we do with all of our society. It's the way that you can like see homeless people on the street and forget about them the next moment, right? Or see this
I'm a
injustice
little
here.
hesitant to say that that is exclusively American about disassociating. I would think that is a general human quality, the
Yes.
ability to dissociate. I would even say I think it probably evolved from the fact that for so much of human history, just like life was very cheap. It was just really easy to die for a very, very
Yes.
long time. And so you had to be able to be like, ignore the horror, focus on getting an elk to eat for our family or whatever. And so I think that evolutionary thing has gotten us to the point where we can do that about horrors we should probably fix instead of ignore. Anyway, and it definitely is happening a lot in America. I just a slight caution that it's probably not
Yeah.
unique to America,
No,
but
yeah, and I don't think it is entirely, but the way that the movie phrases it,
yeah,
frames
yeah,
it about this like this experiment that was started a long ago, and nobody's at the wheel anymore. It was an experiment that was so successful that it just took over everyone and is completely self-sustaining at this point. And you see the parents doing it to their kids, right? This isn't a uniquely American thing, but it's a very American thing, right? The way like a whole identity and the way everything about our culture, like all the privilege, even that the homeless people, and because the movie makes a real thing about like this homeless guy we keep seeing a lot, and even he has a
right.
tether, right? Even like a homeless person still profits and is still like trained to think this way, and that's why I think
Yeah.
what's really interesting about his movies, and why I think Us is such a good allegory of a movie, is it's not just why does this happen, and not just why does this family go through this, but why does this family survive? Is a very big question I think us is asking, right? And the reason why this family survives when no other families that we see or no other people in this movie does is because the family has two people in it who know the truth, right? The youngest son and the mom. The mom knows it because she was down there originally and then came up.
Yeah, because she's a
And
tether.
this
She's not a real
yeah,
person.
and the son is young enough to understand the truth, right? He's the one who the first time he sees them, he's like, they're us. He recognizes they're us. And what the movie is trying to say with the mother character is that it doesn't matter which one of you is up here and which one of you is down there. That's you, right? That is still you. It's interchangeable. Which part of you is the tether and which part of you is the person walking around in the sun? It's still you. And the reason why this family survives is because they both recognize that that is you. Everyone else who dies in the movie is because if you don't recognize that this tether is you, that this bad part is you, that all these horrible truths and all this pain that this tether carries, eventually that part of yourself will kill the good part and replace it. Right? That
Yeah.
is why when there's like an old shitty expression that like if you're young and not a liberal, you don't have a heart. If you're
Yeah.
old and you're a conservative, you don't have a brain, right?
Yeah.
That is what it is talking about. The way that as you get older, eventually your tether, the bad part of you, the part that just holds on to all the evilness of this world, all the pain, all the suffering, eventually that kills the good part and replaces you, right? And that's what you become. But this family,
Yeah.
because it has these two, that's why the son is able to take control of his tether and walk him into the fire, because your tether can't hurt you if you know it's you. It's just you're hurting yourself. It's when you fight against
Mm.
recognizing that this other version of you think it's something else. You think it's not you. Oh, I'm not responsible for these sins. I'm not responsible for this pain. That part of, if you don't acknowledge it, it will kill you and replace you. But as long as
Yeah.
if you recognize it and you kill it first, then you will be okay, right? And that's what I think the movie is trying to say. That's why I said, like, I think it's much more allegorical
Yeah.
than his other movies. It is really a very strong allegory of just what it's like to be an American, what it's like to live here, and what if you don't recognize the evil you put yourself through and you just keep pushing it away, eventually it's going to wear your clothes and it's going to look exactly like you, and it's going to do empty gestures. Like that's why I like the hands across America thing at the
Right.
end,
Right.
because to get to the point that you think like, oh, holding hands across America, that's really going to solve the problems. That's when you've lost. That's when your
Right.
tether is completely taken over and oh, this is just a show. This is just to make me feel better and do this, right?
So okay,
It,
so that I think this is a great reading
a
of it.
brilliant movie.
This is a great reading of it. It's you forgot to mention what it's about is being too scary.
Yeah, it's very scary.
Very scary, real scary. The
And
stabbing and the
the
tension.
escalator only goes down. That's very important, right? I love that image so
I
much.
do too. The imagery of that movie is incredible. And in fact, I wish that reading that you just gave is so good. I wish we had given that reading a title. If I had, it would be called "This Is Us."
Yeah.
Okay, so now that you've gotten that out of the way, and people are changed,
Oh
people
yeah.
have left this differently than they came in.
Everyone's just killed their tether. They're taking off the glove off their hand, putting their bronze scissors away.
So they're putting it on the desk for later. So what is? So let's talk a little bit about the meaning of Nope. Um, so one thing is we've talked about this many times before, but let me give it to you more literally than I've said it before.
Mm.
I like a movie to have meaning, and I like it to either be I can figure it out while I'm watching it or through processing later.
Mm-hmm.
But I like there to be a meaning that the writer has decided on and is telling me, because I think of art as being communication. And if
Yeah.
your point of your art is it's up to you, then that's me, and I shouldn't have to pay you $12.50 for that. I feel like I'm here to hear what you have to say about the world, not for you to tell me like whatever you think is real. So I am one of those, and I do believe I'm not alone. I've talked to some other people like this, but I won't tell you that I'm in the majority because you hate that. I do feel like a lot of people like a movie to mean something, and a lot of people have watched this and gone to the internet and be like, "Tell me what it means." And
Mm-hmm.
if you read those articles, there are two kinds. One is like, it could mean a lot of things. This could happen. Some people think this, some people think this. They're all possible. And the other article is like, here's what it means. And then they don't say anything. They just like say a bunch of nonsense and garbage. It is so this movie does not have an easily quantifiable meaning. It has a lot of little things it's about, but it's not 100% about that. There was a while. So okay, so one of the things they talk about early on is they talk about the first ever motion picture that we have, which is this
assembly a still image to create a moving picture. That little speech she gives is
great. It's a great little speech, right? About the Muybridge images that we think of as the first still pictures creating a moving image, and it's and that we know the name of the person who took the pictures. We do not know the name of the black jockey who was on the horse in that little image, and so I thought which is a cool theme for a movie. This is about who gets credit for the images, and it's these people taking the image, not the people who are being put into the image, who are like actually doing the work and risking themselves and stuff. And there was a chance where this movie was definitely about that, where they have brought in this like weirdo white cinematographer who's got a hand crank thing so the aliens can't knock him out with an EMP, and he's going to take an image of this. And it feels like what the movie's going to be about is it's going to be about the main character on a horse, and the image of him is taken by this weird white cinematographer, and then that guy gets famous and not the Haywood family. And it's not about that. It didn't do that. It got close to it, and then it was like, actually, we got other stuff to do, and then it went and did other stuff.
We got to become Jaws.
Because it became Jaws. Well, so two questions to you. One, am I dumb for wanting it to mean something? And two, does it actually mean something, or does it just want to do a series of interesting images and homages and a character study and then move on?
I mean, I definitely think this movie is much more straightforward than something like, if anything, it feels like a reaction to us being a little too allegorical. And I think in a way he's tried to kind of streamline and tell a much more straightforward story here. And I do think all that stuff you mentioned is in it. I mean, to me, I took this movie as much more about trying to control nature and animals and the sort of stuff you were saying earlier about this movie, right?
The stuff about controlling animals and nature is super, super interesting, and it definitely explains better what the other thing, like the other story about the monkey is. So there's
chasing clout and chasing, like, talking about influencers and stuff that, right? I do think
this clearly has a lot to do with the fame monster, and you have to because it opens with that quote from the Bible that I used when I was introducing you, which is like, "And I will make you filthy and vile, and you will be a spectacle." And so it's clear that. I mean, I think as much as anything you do in a movie, if you put a quote at the beginning, that's the theme of your movie. You're telling us very literally what this movie is going to be about. And I forgot about it until afterwards, and I was like, wasn't there a quote at the beginning? And I did not. But that seems like a framing device. This is about clout. It's about fame, as most perfectly personified by the fact that a guy from TMZ shows up and then they fucking kill him. He just straight up dies.
And he's obsessed with, he's so brainwashed.
Yes.
While wearing,
he's like, just take a picture of me.
While wearing a reflective helmet with a single hole in it, like the monster itself, which is like this reflective thing with a big giant hole in it.
Brilliant little bit of design. Crazy motorcycle helmet. Yeah.
But also, I think that there's like, there's a, like, this movie has
really quick. Can you pause this? I just want to say on the fame thing really quick. I do feel like a lot of movies have as one of their themes, fame is not good. Being in movies is not the right way. Like, on the one hand, it sounds almost like every actor and writer is like, get me out of here. I hate this. Yeah. I'm a prisoner.
Well,
I also wonder, it sort of feels like maybe they just don't want us to get their stuff, and they're like, nah, it sucks here. You don't want to be here. Like, there's like these billionaires sitting in their fancy mansions being like, it's not as nice as it looks. I'm sad too, Like, it feels like when like a parent has a cookie or whatever and they don't want to share with their kid, and they're like, you wouldn't like it, it's spicy. Like, it feels like Jordan Peele is sitting in his mansion telling me I don't want to be famous, it's too spicy.
Yeah, there's definitely a bit of that. But there's also like, did you see? I forget which one of the Paul brothers. I think it was Logan Paul posted this long thing on Twitter talking about how he didn't get this movie and he hated it. And it was like, you're a dude who's like literally spends his life doing crazy, dangerous things, fucking with forces you don't understand for internet clout. Of course, you didn't get this movie.
Wait, he was mad about
Right?
specifically Nope. About not getting
Yes.
Nope?
Yes, he did not
Who
get
was
it.
he
And it
trying to
was,
be? The black cowboy?
yeah, I have no idea. But he was
What did he
like,
think he was going to do?
he was just complaining about this movie and not
I mean,
liking
if
it.
he was the guy in the motorcycle helmet from
Yeah.
TMZ who dies, that would be an interesting level for the movie to have
Yeah.
taken. But I don't think that's what he was upset about. You don't see that guy's face.
But yeah, I mean, I think of like the reason, like something I think about a lot of this movie was like the opening quote you mentioned, and then the fact that this movie has title chapters all
Yeah.
named after animals
That are
right?
about to die.
Yeah, or yeah, and like the way they talk about training animals, or the way like when they every time they cut to the cinematographer in his home, he's just
He's
watching
editing
weird
footage.
videos of
Yeah.
animals,
He's watching
of
videos or he's
predators.
editing footage of animals brutally murdering each other.
Yeah, and like the whole Gordy storyline, which I think is probably the scariest stuff in this movie, is every time they cut back to the monkey on the set. I just love
Okay,
the way that was
that's an
shot.
interesting thought. Okay, keep going.
Um, but the way that like that character, the Jupy, whatever his name is,
Jupiter, yeah, Jupes.
Jupiter, Jupes, yeah, the way he like misinterpreted that event, and I really liked. I didn't think of this myself. Someone else pointed this out to me, but the way he there's a table, he's underneath this table, and there's a tablecloth hanging over that
Mhm.
is blocking him making direct eye contact with the monkey, and that's why the monkey doesn't
Oh,
kill him, but he never
yeah,
pieces that together.
right.
So he thinks that he just has this natural connection with this wild animal, right? With this
Right.
force of
Yeah,
nature
I
that
guess
he can control.
because we're spoiling it, I've assumed most people have seen it, but if you've not seen it and don't care about spoilers and want to know what's happening, so the A story is these people who sell horses, they get attacked by an alien who eats horses. And then the
Mm.
B story is this child actor who was in a sitcom co-starring with a monkey, and the monkey at one point went crazy and killed everybody, or went monkey and killed everybody. He's a chimpanzee, got very violent. Didn't kill actually. I thought it seems like he killed he just beat the crap out of everybody, and it's very bloody and gross. But then, like, one of the characters I thought was dead, we see her later just disfigured.
Mhm.
So it's clear that he possibly doesn't kill anybody, because like SNL made a sketch making fun of it,
Yeah.
which would have been rough if it was like 5 people died on a TV set.
I don't know, that Chris Kattan was real edgy. You know, he would really
Yeah,
go
maybe Chris would
places
have done
other
it.
people wouldn't.
The kid does not get attacked by the monkey, and at the end, the monkey, after like beating all these people up, comes over and fist bumps him. But you're right; it's because he could not make eye contact. Just like we learn with the alien, it wasn't actually a flying saucer. That is the alien itself, and it just looks kind of like
Jean
uh,
jacket.
it looks like a manta ray or
Yeah.
a sea creature of some kind that's flying through the sky eating, and you just can't make eye contact because it pisses it off and it's territorial. So it's just
Yeah.
like a wild animal. So yeah, this guy thinks he has a natural Jupes thinks he has a natural connection to animals because he's the one the monkey didn't attack, but it's because he couldn't make eye contact.
Yeah, and it like the whole way that whole sequence at the ranch when they get abducted,
Mhm.
and like they're inside the creature is
Yeah, they're
just
going.
so incredibly well made and so
It's
brilliant
really
and
cool.
so
Although the
tense.
creature, so the alien is like made of cloth, which is weird, and it's like it's a cool design, but it's so many steps away from what so I always complain that aliens are too similar to Earth creatures, which means we had the same ancestor with a similar evolutionary tract. But this one is so different from any creature we've ever seen. It's got like a square mouth hole with cloth that goes at you.
Mm.
Like, it's not like any creatures we've seen before. So when you're inside it, you're like, this looks like a fun, like one of those Instagram museums where you run through like a bouncy castle and jump
Yeah.
in a pile of ice cream or whatever.
Yeah, but then it'll eat everything that's organic and flush out the rest.
And it'll poop out your keys, and it may pee your blood all over somebody's house.
Yeah. Well, that's only when it has really bad indigestion from eating a
Right. It's
plastic
either
horse
that's the
with a bunch of
indigestion from eating the
legs.
fake horse, or that was like he was puking blood on your house as a marking of his territory. I've seen different
Yeah.
interpretations of that.
Yeah, I mean both of those are valid interpretations.
Yeah.
God, I mean I really liked the way this movie was shot. Like all the like real low angles of like moving underneath the characters so that in the background. The first like scare with the kids pretending to be aliens, the
Oh, it's
whole
a
way
great
that
sequence.
scene is
Great
done
sequence.
is so well
Because
done.
that's the most it was like a horror movie to me. You said that you thought that the Gordy chimpanzee stuff was the scariest part to you. I was 100% unfazed by that, scary wise, because the monkey was so CG looking, and
Mm.
I know you can't have a real monkey beat people up, but
Unfortunately.
it
Yeah.
looked cartoony enough. Yeah, there's SAG rules.
Yeah.
It looked cartoony enough that I was just not. It's just hard to be scared by a CG creature like that for me. It just looks like a cartoon. The first like horror movie moment is that when there's aliens in his barn popping up and scaring him, and
Mm.
but what I love about that, so it looks cool, but also one drops down in front of him and he just straight up clocks it, and it's so funny as a
Yeah.
reaction to an alien jumping out at you as you punch it in the face. Is so cool, and then it ends up being a kid, which is even funnier. But
Yeah, and makes sense. I mean, it's what I would do. It's what you always want someone to do in a movie, but they never
yeah,
do,
just
right?
punch the alien,
Yeah.
just punch it.
I kept thinking, I don't know what this is or like what the point of it is, but I think it's really fascinating that this is his third movie and M. Night's third movie was Signs. Like this almost feels like
Mm.
a reference to that as well a
My
little
third
bit.
movie, I want to
Like
make an alien movie, just like
yeah, in the kind of like a ranch thing, but also like I said, you kind of wanted to make Jaws. I mean the Jaws parallels.
is it's much stronger.
Yeah.
We're gonna start moving towards the exits. We gotta go. It's closing time. We gotta go out yonder. Whatever, I can't remember what the recording says. But a couple last thoughts on this. So I really liked the look of Jupiter's Claim, the fake theme
Mm-hmm.
park that they go through. Um, that story with him having like the illicit stuff from when he was from the horrifying event he
Yeah.
survived that he like sells to people.
Well, the metaphor as well of it's hidden in a room in his office, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's nowhere out publicly, but
Right.
it's in the way he shoves the truth is back in the closet of his mind as well. He
Right.
literally keeps it in a
Yeah,
hidden
that's true.
passage in his office.
That's
Um,
true.
I really love that. The
That whole thing is
scene.
super cool, and I love the way that looks. And also, I mentioned this last week, but Universal Studios opened that set of Jupiter's Claim on the day the movie opened,
I heard about
and
that.
it's not like a ride. It's not its own thing you go through, but it's just on the studio tour, and they just took the actual set. So as soon as they finished filming it, they took it apart, put it in boxes, drove it into Universal Studios, and reassembled it in one piece. So you
Mm,
can drive through the set of Jupiter's Claim at Universal, and it's very cool. I think that's a
yeah.
really cool thing, and I'm surprised they don't do that more often. Because on the one hand, you're like taking a gamble on the movie being good, but on the other hand, the set already exists, so it's not like you're spending as much money as building a set from scratch.
Yeah, and I think they definitely knew this was going to be a big one.
Yeah,
I
this
think
is a
that this.
reasonable get. Also, it cost $60 million to make, so you're like, they're going to make that in the first hour. This is
Yeah.
fine.
Um. But yeah, I really love I want to rewatch this movie because there's this great reveal about like this cloud that doesn't move, and I want to rewatch it looking for the cloud early
Yeah,
on because I know it's there. There's a
that's
great
cool.
moment in his office when he asked to buy back when OJ asked to buy back the horses, and he's like, "Yeah, we can do that." That is very funny after
Where he's
you
hiding the fact
know
that
the
he's been
movie.
feeding them to the alien.
Yeah, that he's been feeding them to the alien the whole time. Um, yeah, I really liked
Okay,
this
couple of
movie
finicky
quite a
things. Now,
bit.
this is a classic Alex end of show segment, which is like, all right, but a couple of little nits that I want to pick real quick. One is you mentioned earlier on about the character of Jupes feeding them to this monster and thinking he can handle that animal and thinking he can like get this predator to do his will. I've read that I've seen that, I've seen other people suggest that, and my concern about that is there's no way he knew it was an animal and not just a spaceship. He thought he was giving horses to the aliens in the ship. And so it still works that he thought he was controlling aliens, but he did not think that was an actual creature. That was a huge leap that only the great OJ Haywood would be able to make, that this was behaving like an animal and not like a spaceship.
Mm,
And is really cool. And it's a thing I've not seen in an alien movie. I'm sure that's happened before, but the idea it's like, oh, that's not a ship full of little aliens. That's one big ass alien is a really cool idea. But I don't buy that he knew that Jupes knew that. There's no way.
Yeah, I can see that reading.
I also am a little bit confused. One thing about it, so the idea is this alien that is the size of a spaceship that is up in the clouds. He is very territorial and he does not want you to make eye contact with him. I get that metaphorically. It's important to the movie. I do not understand how this creature from wherever in the universe is that far away, does not have eyes of its own, but can sense on the ground whether you're looking straight ahead or up a little bit. But then if you draw eyes on the back of your hoodie, it's good enough with those. It thinks those are real. So it has like this incredibly precise vision and threat detection that is incredibly easily fooled by googly eyes. This is a little hard for me. I don't know. Also, how would he evolve to know what eye contact is? He's never seen eyes before. Like, he has no idea what our eye contact, like being a threatening thing, is so dependent on knowing Earth stuff. It's just very strange that this alien would have that point of view. It works for the movie, but it doesn't make a lot of sense for me.
I mean,
Like,
that type of stuff I didn't really bother. I was like, I do like the
this
idea.
is not bothered. We are picking some nits, Anthony.
Yeah, yeah. I do like the idea that this is this creature has been here for so long that all alien sightings are actually just this animal. Right?
Is that what we're supposed to believe?
No, it's just something I
it's just a
thought of.
possibility. Yeah,
That like this thing has just been here for so long that every time someone thinks they see an alien or think they see an alien abduction, it's actually just this animal that lives in a cloud and comes out and eats every once in a while.
It's cool. I really like this idea. I think that's a really interesting. It's not aliens. It's one alien shaped like a flying saucer. It's really cool. One thing that really did kind of annoy me about the movie is I'm always just annoyed when so many things hinge on bad communicating, and like his sister is not good at communicating. Like, literally, we see her give a speech on safety on a horse where she does not mention don't look in its eyes, don't show it a mirror, don't stand in the kick zone behind it. The one thing you need to do in a safety demonstration about a horse is do not stand where it can kick you. Doesn't mention that. She talks about her motorcycle skills and then tells the history of this one of the Muybridge film, and then also everyone goes and stands right behind the horse. Like,
Yeah.
terrible. Like that like, and there are bad people people who are bad at their jobs, but like, if your job is horse wrangling and you give a horse wrangling safety speech on set, you have to know one safety basic feature about a horse.
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of like the point and growth of a character, right? Is that she's obsessed with fame and like wanting to be like a successful in her own way and doesn't actually care about the safety of these animals.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So she's like plugging her other stuff during the speech.
But she could have plugged that stuff and still said, "Don't stand behind the horse." Like, I just feel like she was like too comically bad at the job of handling animals on set, which there are rules about. You just have to you got to tell people not to stand behind. Also, I feel like even if you're a makeup person, you've heard of horses, right? Like, if you've heard of horses, you don't stand where it can kick you. Yeah, and if you have a horse on set and you're the videographer, you don't put a mirror in front of the horse's face. That feels rude. Even if you weren't doing it, didn't know it scared horses, very invasive. They were standing so close to that horse.
Yeah, you shouldn't put that mirror in front of anyone's face. That's just rude.
It was a weird mirror too. I don't actually know what that was, but yeah.
Well, it was those are used for capturing the way light is bouncing around. So when CG artists go in and put in, they use that as a frame of reference for the light in the room. That's what those reflective orbs they use on sets are for.
Interesting, because the horse was covered in those little checks. That means it's going to be CG'd out, which is weird. Why would you bring in a horse to make a CG horse?
Yeah, I'm very curious what commercial they were actually filming there,
it seems
or whatever
like the
that
sort
was.
Of thing that Jordan Peele would do, where there's like, on the DVD, if here's the commercial with the CG horse.
Yeah,
and
I mean, I do love how much the director of photography, the cinematographer guy, was like bored and hated doing that, and so like when you see him later as like this lunatic who is just like excited to capture the impossible shot, like, it makes sense.
Even if it kills him, like, he's literally willing to die to get a better shot than the one. That part was probably the hardest I laughed in the movie, was where they've done the thing, he got the shot, and then he's like, "Oh, but it is magic hour now."
Yeah, it's such a good. I mean, can I just quickly list off all the Jaws parallels
this is
in
a good
this
ending.
movie.
So because we started with Jaws, let's end with Jaws.
Yeah. So the entire final act, right? So in Jaws, to track the shark, they use barrels. In this movie, they use inflatable things, right?
Right.
Again, 1-to-1 parallel. The night before the final thing, Quint and the boys on the boat sing that song. In this movie, the cinematographer sings Purple People Eater, right? Again, a 1-to-1 parallel, right? As they like wrapping up and trying to do their goal in Jaws, Quint breaks the equipment so that they can't call safety and then gets eaten by the shark. Basically, the same exact thing happens with the cinematographer in this movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
You think one character is going down to face the monster. You think that character dies. That's Richard Dreyfuss in Jaws. That's OJ in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Leaving one character alive who gets chased by the monster, gets the monster to eat a thing filled with air that then explodes, killing the monster, and the other character you think is dead immediately comes back.
Yes.
It is so beat for beat exactly the ending of Jaws.
I don't remember. Well, I think I did see Jaws too. I don't remember the other Jaws. Is it the same Jaws or is it a new Jaws that shows up in the later Jaws movies?
No, it's a different Jaws in all the sequels. Okay. It's like literally the baby of the first Jaws. The first Jaws gets blown up.
Right. Because we know that the shark was blown up because there's like shark pieces everywhere. But this alien creature just turns into ribbons. And so I don't know. Maybe it was fine. Maybe that was just it was startled that it could come back together. I don't know that it's actually gone.
I know if we wanted to make another one as well, but Jean Jacket's design when he unravels and it's like this weird angelic creature. Again, it felt very like something out of an anime, just like the Akira shot.
Yeah.
I just loved the visual design. And again, like the thing you said is also a big complaint I have of aliens not feeling alien. And this thing feels so fucking alien in this movie.
Yeah. This feels like
that design.
What's the movie where the aliens are like 30 feet tall rocks in a pool of water and they talk to it through glass?
The Arrival?
Yeah. That was an example of aliens feeling alien enough where it was like, this is bonkers. I have no idea. I can't even wrap my head around it. That's how aliens should be, and not aliens look like, well, they're just like taller people.
They look like fuckable women, which is what most aliens look like, right? Like,
well, those are two reasonable options.
Yeah, but in like the classic Star Trek thing, it looks like something could sleep with. That is what most aliens in sci-fi look like.
All right, we're gonna wrap on that.
I loved that.
I actually, this is exactly what I was always wanted, still processing to be, since the minute I came up with this idea for a show an hour and 15 minutes ago, is I wanted to leave the show feeling like I'd processed it, and now I understand it better than I did going in. So I appreciate you taking me on this journey.
Anytime.
Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to this bonus episode of Season 5. We'll be back again next week with more Season 5. Next week, we're back to the season. We're watching End Game, Avengers End Game. We're traveling via Vin Diesel to get there from Iron Giant. And in between now and then, as I mentioned before, we're going to be doing a live watch-along. Watch us watch Avengers End Game. Some of us. Ezra's too busy. We'll see what happens. Oh, by the way, Ezra and Hunter couldn't make it today. I don't know if you noticed. But some of them will be here Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, and whatever time and wherever you are, you have the internet. You can figure it out. But we're going to watch Avengers End Game in its entirety, and it's going to be ridiculous. And if you have Disney Plus want to watch along, we'll have the link there so you can click in and be synced up. We've never done this before. Might not work. We're going to try that, and then we'll have an episode about it next week. If you have any thoughts on Nope or on Avengers End Game or ideas, this was suggested for us by Paul, I believe, on Twitter. So if you, let me just double check really quick that it was Paul. But yeah, if you have an idea of a thing that we should do in a way that would make the show more enjoyable for you to join us, you can always send us an email, podcast@read-weep.com, and we appreciate everybody who talks to us and gives us feedback. Thanks for hanging out, Anthony.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. Anytime. If you haven't seen Nope and you did just listen to this, sorry for spoiling it. But also, you should see it anyway and keep supporting original movies so we don't have to just talk about Marvel movies all the time.
I agree with that very much. I don't know, in general, I was going to talk about this more, I forgot, but I do not care about spoilers. You spoil a movie, I feel like people like to overreact because it's part of the fun, is being like, oh golly, you spoiled for me. But then you watch a movie and it's fine. But I do I do treasure a time when I can go into a movie that is good, where I knew literally nothing about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the best way. Sometimes it may even be better to know what genre the movie's in, but it is fun occasionally to watch a movie and be like, oh, there's an alien in this movie. I had no idea this was an alien movie. It's kind of exciting. All right. More on that later. We'll talk to everybody next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
We should have made End Game the end of the game for season 5. I just thought of that. All right, bye.